Alright, I'm ready.
Let's do this!
Time to farm some dubs. Crap, I got a squad on my right.
I'm running in for backup.
Yo, Ron, he's right there in front of you.
Ugh. Sorry guys, it happened again.
Damn. This is the 10th one today.
Alright, I'm back.
Someone cover me.
Yeah, I see you. You got him, you got him, you got him! Yes! Yo, that's sweet.
Yeah, it is. We about to win this.
Guys, I can get used to this.
HyperX alloy, built strong.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to ORL for round 11, the penultimate round of the championship, as we're heading to Italy and Monza. I'm Milky Cyril, joined as always by the wonderful Jacob Alada Hancock. And Jacob, we had some exciting action in Silverstone, especially in those last few laps. Do you think Monza can top it?
I think it can. I really think Monza tends to bring some pretty banger races to the table on most occasions, at least, particularly on the game, actually. I think it tends to perform a bit better on the game than in real life. Of course, you do get big DRS trains here, but there's pretty much not a circuit where you don't get big DRS trains at the moment, so I don't think that's really a point against it.
And let's just take a rewind back to last weekend and see how things panned out, because it was, unsurprisingly, I guess, Jana Wattmeyer who was able to secure yet another win in the season, and with it, secure the ORL Season 14 Championship. Joni Tormola picked up P2 ahead of Josh Idowu, Fabrizio Donoso down in P4 ahead of Simon Weigang, Puki in P6, Bensabu Konyi in P7 ahead of Patrick Kruti, Letexia in 9th, and Dario Iamulo completing the top 10. And as we mentioned, Jacob, in terms of the driver standings, it does mean that Jana Wattmeyer has now clinched and has that championship in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, trust Jana Wattmeyer to make literally the most difficult F1 racing league in the world look easy, right? Like, he's just absolutely smashed it this season. He wasn't even there for the very beginning of the season. He hasn't done as many races as some of the other guys in and around him. Admittedly, some of them have missed races here and there, but nevertheless, Jana Wattmeyer has just been absolutely impeccable this season and up against the toughest competition you can get outside of F1 esports itself.
I would have to agree on that. We do see some phenomenal drivers here in the online racing league. Denny Haddad and Alvaro Carreton currently 3rd and 4th, but it's Patrick Kruti in the other Mercedes who is currently sitting in 2nd position. Joni Tormola, after a few race misses, he's currently in 5th on 66 points, but still has a possibility of jumping ahead of the likes of Alvaro Carreton, who we haven't really seen in the last few races.
Yeah, Carreton has either literally not shown up or figuratively not shown up. He did get a 5th a couple of races ago. Last time he literally wasn't there. Time before that, or 3 races ago, sorry, he DNF'd. So it's been very, very hit or miss for Alvaro. And similar for Joni Tormola, actually, who has, I think, missed more races than Alvaro. So I think he's probably points per race. Joni Tormola is probably right up there, maybe 2nd best in the championship. But he's still been a little bit inconsistent. He's just had these occasional races where he finishes 11th. He finishes towards the bottom end of the top 10. And then sometimes he looks like he's almost as good, if not as good as Jana Wattmeyer. So, it's a bit up and down for Joni as well.
I feel like Joni Tormola and Alvaro Carreton kind of had the opposite starts to a season. Alvaro Carreton starting off with 3 podiums in a row, a 3rd, a win, and a 3rd, whereas Joni Tormola, P10, yes, you got a P2 at Zandvoort, but then a P9 in Austria, P6 in Suzuka. So Joni Tormola leaving a lot to be desired, but recently in the races that he has been attending, when he does attend, he seems to be showing up in the figurative sense. One driver that I am keeping an eye out on is Dario Iamolo and Alessio Di Capua, because both of these drivers, I feel, are drivers that can pull out big points, especially Dario Iamolo seems to have that consistency in the Alfa Romeo. But Alessio Di Capua seems to be this hit or miss kind of driver. Either he'll show up, he'll be really strong in qualifying, he'll get a great race result, or it'll just all go terribly, terribly wrong.
Yeah, Alessio, it's absolute feast or famine, coin flip sort of racing for Alessio because he's so good in qualifying. He's the only driver apart from Jarno Otmir to have multiple pole positions this season. He's just really, really, really fast, but he does struggle to keep his nose clean. He struggles to hold it all together. Sometimes it's his own fault, sometimes it's not. Sometimes he has internet issues and hardware issues. So he does have a lot of bad luck, but some of it is of his own making as well. So he has got to clean up his act. But at the moment, he is doing that over in the F1 Esports Challenger Series. He's really making waves there. So I think Alessio is on the up.
And just to remind everyone what the calendar does look like, we're currently round 11 here at Monza. Next week will be the season finale of season 14 in Bahrain. And that is where we will be saying our goodbyes until season 15 comes around. But with that said, drivers are making their way into qualifying. So we're going to be jumping into a quick ad break. And we'll be back with qualifying live and uninterrupted until the very end. Stay tuned.
Hey man, I just can't find a comfortable headset. I mean, I've tried everything. Literally everything.
Jeez, my brother. I got you.
The HyperX Cloud 2 Wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless.
That is comfortable.
What sound experience would you like today?
I'll have the fantasy pack.
Good choice.
And could you make it a Cloud 2 wireless?
On his way, sir.
Sounds amazing!
The HyperX Cloud 2 Wireless. Legendary comfort goes wireless.
Alvaro Caraton is the furthest one forward, by the way.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we jump on in to qualifying. And Jacob, we have a few new faces out on the grid today. Really?
Yeah, we've got a couple of drivers who we've not seen thus far this season, a couple of returning drivers as well. So we've got Kyle Mitchell, who's a name I've not seen for quite a while. Used to be on the Xbox side back in the day, a few years ago now. And he's here for this one. We've got Jake Benham as well, stepping in for the Alfa Romeo, and sometimes known as Jakey B, I believe. And we also have Floris Wires returning to join us after he did a couple of races earlier on in the season, but hasn't been seen for a little while. So it's always nice to see him back. And Alvaro Caraton is also back with us once again.
I'm interested to see JQB out on the circuit, a driver that I have seen a fair bit of. I think, again, from the Xbox scene, races a lot, I believe in WOR, if I'm not mistaken. So interested to see how he can perform. We know he's quick, and to be honest, I'm expecting him to be right up in the top 10. Liam Parnell also joining us from Comrade Gaming. We'll see what he can pull out in his debut ORL race.
Yeah, his teammate Alvaro Caraton has almost completely lost it there. He was the first car out in this qualifying session and was on a flying lap, but he almost binned it completely very close to the wall on the exit of Ascari. So he's had to back out of his lap, that much is for sure. Who's behind him on the road? It's Forrest Wires. He has invalidated, so that's the same old Forrest Wires we're used to seeing. Nicholas Longuet has also invalidated, though, just behind. Daniela Haddad will be the first one to set a proper representative lap time here, unless he dives into the pits, and he does. So I've just cursed him there. The Alfa Romeo coming through is Dario Yamulo, and he sets the first proper lap time of the session with a 1:18.051.
And I was keeping an eye on Fabrizio Donoso. He invalidated on the exit of Ascari. So Jake Benham smashes Dario's time by a few tenths. Then Felipe Sousa then improves. Liam Parnell jumping up into P2. Did you say is Nicholas Longuet on a lap? But I believe he is.
He's invalidated this one as well. He invalidated last one, and then he invalidated this one very early on. It must have been in Rettifilio, the first chicane. So Nicholas Longuet struggling once again with these track limits. That's been his Achilles heel at the last two races. He was on pole last race and had a very, very solid race, but finished down in 11th after penalties were factored in. And penalties cost him the win back in France as well. So Nicholas needs to sort out these track limit issues, and is already struggling with them at the very early stages of qualifying here in Monza as well.
I was keeping an eye as Joshi Doe put in a 17.882 up to P5. Tom 97 is on a lap. I believe he didn't have a great race last time out in Silverstone, had a few issues going his way. So let's see what the Englishman can pull out here in Italy.
And braking hard into De La Roja. You've got to make sure you cut just the right amount of both parts of that chicane, and Tom's done that pretty nicely. Didn't run onto the gravel on the exit, which is so easy to do. Lesmo 1 was nice and committed, very smooth. Lesmo 2, ooh, big kick of oversteer on the exit. That's going to cost him a couple of tenths at least, gathering that one up. And now down the hill and back up it again on his way to another hard braking zone in the form of the Variante Ascari. And he's cut on the inside and invalidated the lap. We're going to see many more drivers doing that before the end of qualifying, I am sure. But nevertheless, it's not good news for Tom 97.
Monza definitely one of those circuits where you can be seeing drivers getting a lot of invalidations. You really have to push the track limits here at Monza, and that goes through pretty much every single chicane, including Ascari, which tends to be where drivers really pick up those time penalties or spin and pick up some wing damage, which is probably even worse.
Yeah, Tom has continued out there, I assume, just to set a representative lap time so that he will have something to, a yardstick to compare any future laps to. He actually did an 18.2. It would have been enough to put him ahead of Pablo Joglar, but behind Dario Yamulo, so not the fastest lap in the world there, despite the invalidation, but nevertheless, something for Tom to look at and improve upon when he next goes back out. Who are the drivers who have gone straight back out? It's Daniele Haddad, Jarno Opmeer, and Tomek Paradzic are the three out on flying laps as we speak.
And I'm interested to see what's going to come through from Jarno, because he has won the championship, and what you do sometimes see from drivers who have already, hit their goal for the season is that sometimes they tend to start further down the field, not put as much effort into qualifying so that they can have a bit more fun in the race. And we'll see if that is the case from Jarno, because on the flip side, I don't think he'll want to be spoiling his current record of consistently starting on the front row of the grid.
No, indeed. And he has gone purple through the first two sectors, if the minimap is to be believed. So I believe he is on a fast lap right now, Jarno Opmeer. It's 25.7 in the first sector. He's coming into the final corner now and up towards the line. He is already several tenths up on Bensab Okonye's current provisional pole time. And across the line, Jarno Opmeer improves by just over 2/10 of a second.
We're going to move over to Alessio Di Capua, the Italian, his home circuit. I think he ran a tad wide through Lesmo too. So
He's invalidated.
Oh, he has indeed. As Danny Haddad's putting in a 17.5. That's enough to put him up onto the front row of the grid alongside his fellow esports driver, Jarno Opmeer. Tomek Paradzic jumping up to P3 with a 5.82.
Yeah, I think Daniele will be relatively happy with that. Same for Tomek. They're both keeping Jarno within touching distance at the moment, which is very important, particularly at a track like this where it's a relatively simple circuit. There's only so many parts of this track. There's only so many corners, so many places where you can gain or lose time. So you do not want to be significant chunks of time behind your close opposition, because really, theoretically, the field ought to be very bunched up in qualifying around here just because of the nature of the circuit. The corner cutting, of course, notwithstanding. Getone just came across the line and moved himself right into that middle pack of all the drivers on the 17.8s. Up into 8th he goes, ahead of Josh Idowu, who's going to be slightly unhappy with his performance thus far.
Something else to remember here at Monza is that the alternate strategy is not as strong as it is at other circuits. In fact, some would say that the normal strategy is actually quicker than the alternate strategy. So anyone starting outside top 10, they don't even have that alternate strategy advantage. They just have the very, very slight tyre advantage. And I'm keeping an eye on Kyle Mitchell, who's making his way through Parabolica now, currently down in P19, as he is yet to set a lap. Let's see what this is. He'll be wanting a mid-17. He picks up a 17.794, which is enough for P6.
Not a bad lap from Kyle at all, puts him just ahead of Liam Parnell and Jake Benham. So all the new boys doing a pretty good performance thus far. And speaking of good performances, Alvaro Caraton to the very top with a 1:17.339. That's a 1/10.5 quicker than Jarno Opmeer's time. And that is one hell of a gauntlet to throw down there for the Spaniard. He'll be really, really happy with that one, you got to feel.
And Liam Parnell improved as well. He's up at 2P7 and has demoted the pair of AlphaTauri drivers of Kyle Mitchell and Pablo Joglar to P8 and P9 respectively. Fabrizio Donoso has just dived into the pits. What about Nicolas Longuet? He might be on a push lap, but he's very low on the ERS department.
Yeah.
And
I tell you what, he's also invalidated his 4th attempt. This is his 4th invalidated flying lap of the session thus far for the Red Bull driver. Neither of the Red Bulls have managed to set a lap time thus far, and Nicolas is going to be kicking himself with all these mistakes he's making out there at the moment.
Ben Sabakoni has almost found 2/10 in the opening sector. This could be a very, very quick lap for the Hungarian. And if he is able to find just a tiny bit more time, he might even be finding himself on the front row of the grid. As actually Joshi Doe has a leapfrogged Jarno Altmaier onto the front row as Jarno is demoted down to P3. Let's see what the Hungarian can pull out. Just Parabolica remains.
Yeah, he had a good Sector 2 as well. His initial lap was enough to put him on provisional pole for a fair while, and it was only really his first sector that let him down. So the fact that he's improved there is big news, and this could be a very, very fast lap from the Hungarian as he comes up towards the line now. Oh, it's up into 5th. It is significantly faster, but the trouble is there's still 4 drivers who are faster still.
It's a decent lap from Ben Sabakoni ahead of Tomek Poradic. We remember these two were championship rivals back in ORL season 11. And it was Ben Sabakoni who was able to secure the title and currently one position ahead of his older championship contender. Tom 97 has just started a lap. Currently both Red Bulls at the back of the field. Not what we're used to seeing, not here in ORL or even in real life.
No, indeed. Yeah, ever since Nicholas Longe at least has been back, he's been right up there in terms of his grid performance and general pace. So, I'm sure he does have quick pace at this circuit as well, but the trouble is he just cannot string a clean lap together right now. Let's see whether Tom 97 can do better. Much smoother through Lesmo 2 this time than last time we were on board with the British Red Bull driver. And now he's heading up to Ascari. This is where he invalidated last time round. Going to give a wide berth to that entry curve and does so. A little bit tentative through there. He wants to make sure that he's going to get a lap time on the board. Not taking so much of the slipstream of these cars ahead. Maybe could be a bit more in their wheel tracks, but I don't think that's going to cost him anything. As we now head into Parabolica, the final challenge of the lap before coming up towards the line. Keeping it to the right-hand side, nailing the throttle. And it's good enough for 14th only for Tom 97 and 18 flat.
Not the best lap from Tom 97. I do believe he said in his interview last week that Monza is not one of his better circuits. So we shouldn't expect it too much. I'm keeping an eye on Flores Valles, Alessio Di Capua and Fabrizio Donoso also on laps, and none of these three are yet set any form of a time that hasn't been invalidated. So let's see what the Racing Point driver can pull out.
Yeah, Donoso's had a good first sector. Forest Wires' first and second sectors are both looking pretty okay right now. So these drivers should be getting pretty high up. Alessio Di Capua also on a similarly fast lap. 25.7s pretty much across the board at the moment for these three. So all of them very, very much pushing right now. And it's almost their final chance. Still 5 minutes remaining in the session, but they've got to be running low on tires quite soon. So they do really want to make this lap stick to make sure it's not just a one-shot qualifying experience for them. Flores Wires goes up into third with a 1:17.357. Have some of that. Jarno Altmaier was able to improve to a 1:17.3 of his own, so he is still ahead of Flores, but nevertheless, a very good lap.
Fabrizio Donoso only good enough for P10 at 7.91, and he's definitely going to be searching for more. Alessio Di Capua about to complete his lap in the Ferrari as well, and that's a 17.4. That's a good time from the Italian. P4 alongside Forest Fires on the second row of the grid.
Now Nicholas Longe is going to be the next one to try and register. He's finally managed to avoid invalidating, but his second sector is about a 10th shy of where it needs to be to challenge the very top drivers. So he's got to have absolutely nailed this final sector, and it looks like he's done a pretty good job of it, but still down in 6th at the moment, a 10th shy of Alvaro Caraton's current fastest time of the session. And Alvaro is looking to still improve. However, he is about a 10th down on his own best lap time thus far this lap. He's got closer through Sector 2, so if he really nails Sector 3, he could improve yet again.
I was riding a ball with Felipe as well. He had a minor mistake through Ascari, so he's not going to be able to improve. Let's see if Alvaro Caraton can push the benchmark even higher. Jarno Altmaier was able to improve on his previous lap at 17.3, but still not good enough to jump ahead of Alvaro Caraton. We talk about how Alvaro hasn't been showing up literally or figuratively, but I think he's starting to show up tonight. Sadly, unable to improve on the 3.39, but still a quick time nonetheless from the Williams drive.
And Josh Adowu's made a mistake in the final sector, and he's had to back out of his lap as well. His first two sectors were promising. But alas, it all went awry at the end, and he's decided just to sack that one in, straight back into the pits to give himself one more opportunity to challenge for the very top. And look at these drivers, the top 7, the top 8 drivers, all of such immense quality here. And I mean, the rest of them are very, very high quality as well, don't get me wrong. But those lap times really are something special.
Dario Muller was able to improve a 17.672, and this has demoted the likes of Tom 97 right to the back of the grid. Also, Patrick Cruty, remember, he was leading the championship not too long ago. He's still second in the championship. He's down in P18.
Yeah, I noticed he left the session earlier, so I don't know if he's having connection issues, the Polish driver in the Mercedes. He has managed to set 2 lap times thus far this qualifying session. It's all in Sector 2 where he's really struggling. He's about 3/10 down on the fastest drivers through that second sector alone. So as long as he can sort out that second sector, he should be looking good to move himself pretty significantly further up the order.
I'm going to take a little look at Danny Haddad, as I think he just cut through the opening chicane to make his way around a bit quicker. Not entirely sure, but he definitely took down one of the advertisement boards. I'm interested to see what he can pull out, because he's down in P8. He's 2/10 off Alvaro Carreton, but we know that Danny Haddad has more pace, and he's another driver alongside Alvaro Carreton who's, you know, figuratively not been showing up at 2 races. We remember his race back at, I think it was Brazil, where he ended up losing part of his front wing. Similar thing happened in Bahrain, and all of these little mistakes have been costing him so many points in the championship.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the first few races of the season, I had him pegged to sort of Mr. Consistent. He wasn't winning, but he was always 2nd, 3rd, 4th, or 5th. But that sort of went awry as the season progressed, and he needs to find that sort of form again for sure. He is still currently sitting 3rd in the championship, just behind Patrick Cruty, so he can definitely try and secure 2nd with a couple of good results in the last couple of races of the season, and he'll want to do that, and there's no doubt about it. Andy and Patrick Cruty are both out there on flying laps at the moment. Same for Ben Saboconi and Daniele Haddad himself. Fabrizio Donoso currently sitting down in 15th as well. He'll desperately want to improve.
Alvaro Carreton has only just come out of the pits to start his out lap, so if our timings are correct, he will not be able to start his hot lap in time, but sometimes we do see a bit of a desync between the timers on our screens as spectators compared to the timings for the drivers. Now, Danny Haddad, not the greatest of first sectors, but his run through the Rogers chicane seems clean enough.
Yeah, that did seem clean enough, but it was a pretty poor first sector, and it's hard to claw that time back when they're driving next to perfect laps around Monza again and again and again. Tomek Paradzic invalidated in the first sector of the lap, so he is going to struggle to get round again and do another lap, so that might be qualifying over for him. Jake Benham seems to be on a pretty good lap at the moment, unless I'm very much mistaken, and, oh, never mind, it's not the best Sector 1 I've ever seen.
Let's see what Danny Haddad can pull through. Just a parabolica remaining. Jake Benham coming down in P9, just 400th behind this man, Danny Haddad. Parabolica looks decent, but sometimes when it looks clean, it's not enough. As Ben Saboconi jumps up to 3rd, Danny Haddad with a 3.27. You said, Jacob, it's hard to find time, but somehow Danny Haddad has found it.
I do not know how he's done that. After that first sector, I thought there's no way he's going to be challenging for pole, but Daniele Haddad is sitting at the very top of the order at the moment, but not for any longer, because there's Josh Idowu over the line to claim first position away, and by a healthy margin as well. Here comes Jarno Otmir in the final corner, up towards the line we go. Where's this going to be? It's not enough, and he's there in second. Now, is anyone left to challenge? Alvaro Carreton. He started his lap late, but he has been able to continue with it. Flores Wires across the line doesn't improve. Nicholas Longuet is out there. He's improving on his lap as well, entering the final sector of the lap now.
Let's see what Nicholas Longuet can pull out. He's almost at 2/10 up on his current PB. Alessio Di Capua with a 2.60 will knock Jarno Otmir off the front row for the first time this season. What a lap. But is there anything that Nicholas Longuet can do? Half Italian, half French, and this is partly his home track as well. But he's just shy by 100th of a second, and it's all on Alvaro Carreton. He's 200th down at the exit of Sector 2, and it is just the parabolica remaining. He pushes the car to the limit, loses the rear end, and that is that.
That is that. Alvaro knew that his second sector wasn't up to snuff, and he had to push as hard as he could in the final corner of the lap, but He overcooked it, and as a result, a qualifying session in which he was looking so strong turns out to only be good enough for 6th place for him. And yet he's less than a 10th off the ultimate pole time of Alessio Di Capua. Look how close all those lap times are. Look at the names as well at the very top. But above them all, it is Alessio Di Capua. What a lap from him.
Phenomenal, Jacob. Absolutely phenomenal. We're talking about 1/10 from Alessio Di Capua on pole to Jake Benham down in P9. And then we have this absolutely huge, whopping 1/10 gap between, you know, the next two drivers from Jake Benham to Tomek Bonadish and then to Pablo Hogla. And then it gets really close again. But I did not expect that I'd be able to say that we've pretty much got 2 Italians on the front row of the grid. I'm happy that I can say that.
I mean, it's a generous interpretation of Italian, but if you say he's half Italian, who am I to disagree? So yeah.
I went on his stream and he was speaking Italian, and I said, wait, you speak Italian? And he said, yeah, I think he said he's part Italian or something. So as far as I'm concerned, it's an Italian 1-2 at Monza in qualifying.
Oh, there you go. Fantastic. And what better than an Italian in a Ferrari on pole as well? Obviously, it would be a bigger deal if it was in the real life, but nevertheless, the Tifosi will absolutely love that one. Alessio with the fastest lap. Josh Adowu, by the way, up in 3rd as well. Another great qualifying from him. And he and Alessio, the Challenger Series boys, are definitely taking it to the F1 Esports regulars. And outdoing Jarno Opmeer, Daniele Haddad, Alvaro Carreton, the likes of those guys who are just so quick.
Now, we have a lot to break down. Let's be honest here. There's a lot to break down. We're going to be heading into a short break. And when we're back, we'll be bringing you the race live and uninterrupted to the very end. So make sure to stay tuned. There's a lot of action coming through here on the Online Racing League. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we are ready to jump on in to the race. Just waiting for the drivers to load on up and formation lap will begin. Now, for those people tuning in, this is round 11 of 12 for Online Racing League Season 14. Jarno Opmeer has already clinched the championship, and people are probably tuning in thinking, Milky Jacob, it's going to be boring. Jarno Opmeer is going to dominate, right? Well, no, because Jarno Opmeer is not even starting on the front row of the grid.
Yeah, Jarno Opmeer starting down in 4th. You can see him there in the number 69 Mercedes. And Daniele Haddad just behind him as well. Alvaro Carreton in 6th. Those guys who are chasing him throughout the championship season. And they're chasing him here in qualifying as well. They'll be desperate to get one over on Jarno Opmeer off the line. Meanwhile, we got Alessio Di Capua, Nicolas Longe, and Josh Adowu up ahead as well. So it's not going to be easy for Jarno, even starting in 4th. Even if he has the fastest car in terms of race pace, he's still going to struggle to get past these guys because that is such a set of drivers to be in and around.
Now, recently, in the last few races, we've been noticing a bit of a trend. I brought it up with Jarno Opmeer last time out at the end in interviews. And this has been the case of Jarno Opmeer not actually winning races on circuit. He's been finishing P2 in the last 2 races. But time penalties for Nicolas Longe and for Fabrizio Donoso has seen Jarno Opmeer promoted to the top of the standings. And again, he's got Nicolas Longe ahead of him. And this is a track that is notorious for time penalties. If Nicolas Longe can keep it on track and avoid any time penalties, he should have a shout. But if he doesn't, Jarno Opmeer again might be finding himself picking up another win courtesy of penalties.
Yeah, we will see. Hopefully not. I'd love to see it just determined out on track. But given the amount of invalidations we saw in qualifying, it wouldn't surprise me too much if some of these drivers at the front do get penalties, particularly the likes of Nicolas Longuet and Alessio Di Caprio, who have hardly been, let's say, penalty averse throughout the season thus far in the races that we've seen. Nicolas Longuet in particular has been very prone to picking up penalties, so he'll be desperate to try and keep it clean because he'll know that Jarno Opmeer is definitely going to be up there with the cleanest of the lot.
I'm also keeping an eye towards Kyle Mitchell, starting down in P18 in the AlphaTauri. He's starting on those soft tyres, so he should be able to gain quite a lot of time over the medium tyre runners around him. And as I said before in qualifying, the alternate strategy is not really quicker than the normal strategy. So it all comes down to how quickly can Kyle Mitchell make his way through these medium tyre runners as the drivers start to line up on the grid.
He's got so many to get past, though. It's a big challenge ahead of him. And it's a challenge for Alessio Di Caprio as well. The pressure is on. He's starting from pole at his home race. Can he live up to his pace?
We'll have to wait and see as the lights are starting to come on here in Italy. And we are ready for round 11 of ORL Season 14. And we are underway. It looks to be a really good start from the racing point of Danny Haddad, but it is Alessio Di Caprio who leads the field away. Jarno Opmeer slithering down the inside of Josh Idowu and might even look to go down the inside of Nicolas Longuet as well. He'll have the outside for turn 2 on the exit of the Rettifilo chicane, and he gets the power down magnificently and actually is ahead into Curva Grande. I don't believe it, but Jarno Opmeer from P4 on the grid has found the Fernando Alonso start. You can see the pair of them running side by side. Nicolas Longuet loses the rear end and has spun around. Disaster. And we have the first safety car of the season as well.
Safety car coming out here for the collision between Nicolas Longuet and Alessio Di Caprio, the two who started on the front row. Nicolas tried to take that first away from Alessio Di Caprio into Della Roja, but they made contact and Nicolas was the one who came off worse. The game has given Alessio Di Caprio a 5-second time penalty for the collision, though, so it's not going to suit him either. And it's all falling into place to Jarno Opmeer once again. Meanwhile, at the very back, Ben Savoconi and Jake Benham seem to get together. They've both fallen down all the way to the back of the order, having started just inside the top 10.
And don't forget, these 5-second time penalties would usually be removed post-race, but because the drivers still have to make a pit stop, the 5-second time penalty will be served in said pit stop, and this is real disaster for Alessio Di Caprio, Nicolas Longuet, Fabrizio Donoso. Once again, everything falls into the master plan of Jarno Opmeer. Does anyone pit? Jarno Opmeer, late dive, and Josh Idowu follows drastically later, but he speeds into the pit lane in a desperate attempt to match Jarno Opmeer's strategy.
Yes, I mean, he's done him in that regard as well. Is there any way Jarno Opmeer cannot find an edge on his opponents? He's baited Josh Idowu into picking up a 5-second pit lane speeding penalty. However, he has been jumped in the pit lane by Josh, so Idowu is going to be ahead.
He was behind before the pits. He lost the position
when
the
of course,
safety car came out.
Indeed, yeah, no, you're right. So he's going to be still behind him. There's going to be all kinds of shenanigans going on in the pit lane behind these guys as well. Seems like a lot of holding has been going on because there's a big gap between Daniele Haddad and Josh Idowu. Tomek Paradzic has managed not to lose out too much, even though he was having to effectively double stack with his teammates. So I wonder if he maybe slowed up some of the other drivers behind him going into the pit lane or not. Of course, that's just an assumption. I don't know whether that's true. Meanwhile, there's a few drivers still out there who did not elect to pit, some at the very front and some towards the very back.
I do want to bring up one point, and I'm not sure if this is the case, so don't hold me to it. But I remember there being some talk about if a driver already has a 5-second time penalty that would get removed because it was unfairly given, are they then allowed to speed into the pit lane and effectively serve it in that regard whilst not losing as much time from it? So there may be a possibility that Josh Idowu's current time penalty will get removed post-race because he's effectively already served a 5-second time penalty.
I mean, it's possible, but he didn't have a time penalty before that pit stop.
Did he not?
So he didn't have a time penalty to cancel out or anything like that. So I think he is going to hold on to this one. Interestingly, it does seem that Fabrizio Donoso has been able to serve his time penalty. Same for Nicolas Longuet. Neither of them have penalties to their name anymore. Tom 97 is the next driver to dive into the pits a lap later than everyone else. And a late call for Tom will cost him an awful lot of track position. He might just about be ahead of Bent Sabokonyi, but he'll be down in 19th place when he gets out of this pit lane.
Yeah, Ben Sabokonyi a fair way down the order. And actually, it's going to be pretty tight. I'm going to ride on board with Ben Sabokonyi and see if we can see Tom 97 coming out of the pits. Remember, he's in that Red Bull pit box, so a long way to make his way to the pit exit line. And, oh, Tom 97 by a few seconds will rejoin at the back of the grid. Okay, let's talk strategies here, because Alessio Di Capua has a 5-second time penalty that he has to serve in the pits. He's got Alvaro Caraton behind him, but those soft tyres will fall off at around about lap 9, lap 10 maybe, because his safety car should be able to extend that soft life a little bit further.
Yeah, it's interesting actually, the decision these guys have made to stay out on these soft tyres. It might just pay off for them, especially Alessio, who needs to do something different to gain 5 seconds on the rest of the field. If he was in a straight race with the likes of Jarno Opmeer, Nicolas Longuet, Daniele Haddad, I don't think he'd be able to pull 5 seconds on them over the course of a race, and therefore make up for that pit stop he's going to have to make, particularly if it's only over the course of the first stint. But this way, there's a chance he might be able to build that time because they're on such different strategies. There might be a significant enough tyre delta in these first few laps that he can actually claw back some of the pain he's going to get from that penalty. But you got to think that he would probably like to have been able to serve that penalty under safety car conditions as well.
Safety car is in this lap, and one thing you can be assured of, Jacob, is that Alessio Di Capua and Alvaro Caraton will not battle. They have to push, they have to work together and make sure they do not hold each other up. Whether that means letting each other through on DRS straights just to be able to pull each other as far ahead as they can. But Alessio Di Capua has pulled the pin, and Alvaro Caraton has not been caught napping. He'll be able to tuck in just 3 tenths behind, but look how close Pablo Hoglar is to Dario Mullo, and he's got Andy right on his tail. They're going to be practically 3 abreast as they make their way down towards the Rettifilio chicane, down behind Jarno Opmeer, almost running into the back of Joshi Dowu, but he'll be able to stay behind as Andy runs over the curb through the Rettifilio chicane, and that will unsettle the car and allow Andy to find a way through as Pablo Hoglar now coming under pressure from Joshi Dowu.
Yeah, that was a lovely dive down the outside there from Andy. Almost took 2 of them in that first chicane, but had to back out of his move on Dario Yamulo, which was always going to end in tears if he didn't. But nevertheless managed to do Pablo Hoglar in turn 1, which is always nice. Up into 4th goes the Ferrari driver. It's a Ferrari 1st and a Ferrari 4th for the time being. Josh Idowu, though, is having no trouble staying with the likes of Hoglar and Andy up ahead. So it's going to be tough for Alessio to break away from the pack right now, which he really, really needs to do, having not pit when so many of these other drivers have. The trouble is, the train can be so strong, even without DRS. You always have the ERS and the slipstream effect, so the drivers should be able to stay in a train right now. Nicolas Longuet picking up the first 3-second time penalty of the race there, and I'm not too surprised.
We talked about it, didn't we? In qualifying, Nicolas Longuet picks up time penalties fairly often. It's cost him a race win before. I think his race win has already been compromised due to the incident down into the Roger chicane. Alvaro Caraton and Alessio Di Capua have been able to break over a second to Dario Yamulo and the rest of the medium tyre runners, as Tomek Poladic definitely picking up a corner cut warning into turn 1. He's currently 3 tenths behind Jarno Opmeer, as Ben Sabokonyi actually battling with the Gatone and has been able to pick up the position on the exit of the opening chicane.
Yeah, I'm not sure, because Getone, by the way, was involved in an incident with Fabrizio Donoso on the first lap that we didn't quite catch. That's why Fabrizio had a 5-second time penalty. It was for a severe collision, quote-unquote, with Getone. So I'm not sure if Getone maybe had some front wing damage. We did see him well off the very back of the field when Tom came into the pits. So I assume he had to change a front wing in that pit stop, and as a result, he's currently sitting down in 19th place.
97 will be hoping for some good changes to his fortune. Currently at the back of the field is within the DRS train, so should be able to tag along to the end of the race. But as we know, once you're in a DRS train, yes, it helps you stick to everyone, but it also makes it very difficult to find a way through. Alessio Di Capua 6 tenths ahead of Alvaro Caraton, as we just saw Flores Valles picking up a 3-second time penalty on the exit of Ascari.
I've just taken a look into the race director, by the way, looked at the incidents or the pit stops, and 10 drivers had to change front wing at the end of that first lap. 10. That is absurd. There was a lot of carbon fiber going flying in the middle of the pack, apparently. And so many drivers having to replace that front element. That's why so many of them were so long in the pits relative to... We saw that gap form between Yoshido, Yano, Otmir, and then everyone behind. It's because everyone was changing their front wing and losing out so much time. But if everyone loses the time, then no one loses the time, especially behind the safety car. So it all kind of worked out in the end for them.
And now this is the point where drivers like Alessio Di Capua, if they had known that with hindsight, they could have dived into the pits. They wouldn't have lost as much with that 5-second time penalty. At the moment, though, it is a 1-4 for the Ferrari drivers. Alessio Di Capua currently leading the race, and Andy down in P4. Sadly, not as good of a run for the Alfa Romeo drivers. Dario Mullo currently sitting in P3. Jake Benham riding on board with currently down in P15.
It's interesting because Dario Yamulo's used a lot of overtake to try and get back within DRS range of the front two, and he can't quite do it. He's right on the cusp of it right now, and he's also on the cusp of moving Andy outside of his own DRS range. So if he can just find one more tenth on this next lap, then he'd be golden. Trouble is, he's at 0% ERS right now. So that gap is going to start growing between himself and Alvaro. You can see it now. And closing between himself and Andy. So he went for broke there in that last couple of laps using his overtake, and he failed to get the gap he needed.
Dario Mullo got very close to pulling the 1 second to Andy, but just falling shy of his mark. So now it's just a case for Dario Mullo to save up ERS. Pablo Hogla behind Andy, and then it's Yoshido and the rest of the hard tyre runners. Jano Otmir, Tomek Paradisha, good showing right now for McLaren, P6, P8, which will effectively become P1 and P3. If you, at the very least, ignore the 5-second time penalty that Yoshido has.
Patrick Cruti is driving a train within the train at the moment. Jake Benham, Fabrizio Donoso, Ben Sabacogni, they're all nose to tail behind the Mercedes, desperate to try and get past the Polish driver. And actually, it's going to be Ben Sabacogni making a move on his teammate Fabrizio Donoso here. Fabrizio usually the faster of the two, but it seems not the case here in Italy. And Bent's backing out of that move in the end, but Fabrizio almost losing it there on the exit of Ascari. He actually holds it together nicely and hardly loses any time doing that, which is surprising to say the least. So good recovery there from the Chilean driver.
How that Renault is not in the wall, Jacob, I do not know. But once again, Fabrizio Donoso finding a way past Ben Sabacogni. Remember, these two probably not best friends after the incident that occurred back in China. Patrick Cruti is closing in on Carl Mitchell down into turn 1, but not quite close enough to send one as that's contact. Jake Benham just tapping the rear end of Patrick Cruti, and hopefully that hasn't picked up any form of wing damage for the Alfa Romeo.
It's visibly okay. His wing isn't missing any elements that you can see with the naked eye. He might have the tiniest shade of sort of lighter green on his front wing, but other than that, he's going to be okay. And it's not going to cost him too much lap time, particularly around a circuit like Monza anyway, where losing a front wing or losing elements of your front wing, it's about the least punishing circuit for it, particularly if you lose it on the right-hand side of your front wing, because that's not going to lose you any time through Parabolica, which is the most aero-dependent corner on the circuit.
I agree with that. By the way, there may be some damage. We'll have to see whether there is a front wing change call for Fabrizio Donoso. He does actually, never mind, he's not planning on diving on into the pits again. Fabrizio Donoso running wide, and maybe there is some damage on the Renault. Ben Sabacogni now able to find a way through on his teammate.
Yep, sliding past his teammate there, and you know, if there was a Renault team principal, they might have pulled the team orders on that, because Bentz does look very quick right now.
Off here because here comes Nicolas Longuet on Liam Parnell. Liam Parnell will go defensive, but it's nice and easy for Nicolas Longuet with the DRS, and he moves up to P11.
Easily done there by the Frenchman. I assume Liam had a poor run out of the final corner. Seems like he dropped DRS on Daniele Haddad as well. So the Williams driver in his first ORL race of the season, not really quite able to live with the pace of the front 9 drivers. But then again, who can, to be honest? Nicolas Longuet now will try and close down that gap between himself and Felipe ahead, and then Daniele Haddad ahead of him.
Pablo Hogla closing in on Andy here, and Andy almost a second down on Dario Mullo, but just still within the DRS range as Carl Mitchell picks up a 3-second time penalty. And let's see actually if Pablo Hogla can pull off a move. Not the best of runs through Ascari. If he's not careful, he might find himself becoming lunch for a certain Josh Doe behind.
I don't think the soft tyre runners at the very front, Alessio Di Capua, Alvaro Caraton, they are two of the fastest drivers here today. We saw that in qualifying, Alessio taking pole and Alvaro looking like he was going to take pole for a while in qualifying. I don't think they have enough pace on these used soft tyres. They're not building enough of a gap to the rest of the field to really justify their decision not to pit under the safety car conditions. So unless they have an absolute monster stint on the mediums when they come in for those, it's going to be tough for them to claw up into a good position come the end of this race.
Patrick Cruti has just been able to find a way through on Carl Mitchell, who's starting to struggle on his hard tyres. We also saw Pablo Hoglar missing his braking point and almost running into the back of Andy. Very lucky not to lose part of his front wing, and Andy picking up a 3-second time penalty as well now. Things are going badly for the Shizou driver. One thing to keep an eye out on is, yes, the hard tyres are doing well relative to the mediums and the softs, but don't forget those hards are fresher than the mediums and the softs. So once those medium and soft tyre runners do come into the pits, that's when we will really see that pace discrepancy coming through, and that's when the race will start to get exciting.
Second 3-second time penalty of the race just came through for Nicolas Longuet. So once again, really struggling with track limits. And it's an area of his game he's really going to need to shape up in the coming races, because he is struggling a lot with that at the moment. And of course, it's easy to do here in Monza, but there are plenty of drivers who are managing to avoid any penalties, as Alvaro and Alessio both dive into the pit lane.
And there was contact between Jake Benham and Carl Mitchell. They just had tapped the wheels on the run into Parabolica. Jake Benham has been able to find the switchback and will be able to find his way past the AlphaTauri. Has a DRS as well from Patrick Cruti ahead. Jake Benham climbs up to P12.
Alvaro will exit the pits first, of course, because Alessio had to serve his 5-second time penalty there in the pit lane. And they're both back out on medium tyres, but well off the back of the snake that is the rest of the field. And 9 seconds for Alvaro to eat into here with Tom 97 up ahead. But the trouble is, everyone on these hard tyres, they're surely expecting to go the whole race distance on that set of tyres. Degradation not terribly high around here. So they've got to make up that time, and then they've got to be able to challenge their way up one by one up the ladder through the field.
And this is where things will get difficult for Alvaro and Alessio. Actually, when did Alvaro overtake Alessio? Oh, Alessio had the 5-second time penalty.
Yeah.
Apologies. But this is where it gets difficult for Alvaro and Alessio. Yes, they've got the better times, but it's going to be so hard for them to make their way up the field. And to be honest, I think they're going to be lucky if they can even pick up some points here.
Yeah, very lucky. I mean, I'd be honestly astonished if they did manage to pick up points with the way this race is going thus far. They will have at least Dario Yamulo, Andy, and Pablo Hoglard coming into the pits in the next few laps, but they're likely to go onto a set of soft tyres for the end of this race, and we know that the soft tyres hold up pretty well around here, so they might even be able to catch back up to Caraton and Di Capua once they come out of the pits as well, so they might not be quite so safe to those three as they would usually. Josh Idowu, Jano Otmir, and Tomek Paradzic have stayed very well with those medium tyre runners, not struggling on their hards whatsoever. Daniele Haddad, however, has been consistently dropping a 10th here, a 10th there to the Polish driver in the McLaren up ahead. And that pink racing point is starting to fall back towards the clutches of Felipe behind.
Things starting to go badly for those drivers who didn't opt to pit under the safety car. You can understand why they didn't pit. They were towards the front of the field, especially the likes of Alvaro Caraton and Alessio Di Capua. But after they didn't pit, the entire field did. And it's always, you know, the luck of the draw when you're at the front and you have to decide whether to pit or not. Because whatever you do, pretty much the entire field can do the rest. And it really can screw your race over. But let's see what they can find. They are closing in onto the likes of Tom 97 and Get Owned. It will take some work to be able to close right on in. Josh Idowu 4/10 behind Pablo Hoglar, as these guys are starting to close into one another. We might start to see some changes for position towards the front end of the field.
You might well do, yeah. Daniele Haddad and Dario Yamulo are the latest two drivers to pick up 3-second time penalties. They did so last lap, so that's our race leader. And Daniele Haddad, who that shows just how much he's struggling right now. Because you don't pick up 3-second time penalties unless you're really pushing. And he's really pushing, and he's still not able to keep up with Idowu, Otmir, and Paradzic. So it's not looking too great for Daniela Haddad's chances of snagging a podium in this race, especially now that he's picked up that penalty.
Danny Haddad had that 5-second time penalty that he had to serve in the pits, and now a 3-second time penalty as well. Liam Parnell picks up a time penalty, and maybe that will help Danny Haddad somewhat and be able to secure him at least a couple of points here at Monza. Remember, Danny Haddad currently down in P4 in the championship, but very close to Alvaro Carreton and Patrick Cruti. So every single point does matter in this in this three-way battle for P2 in the championship.
Yeah. Speaking of Patrick Cruti, he's not looking too hot either, dropping further and further away from Liam Parnell up ahead of him. And Nicolas Longuet, Felipe, Daniela Haddad, that little train of four there, already dropping the 11th downwards train at quite a rate of knots at the moment. As soon as I said that, Cruti did actually get a couple of tenths closer. But in general, he is falling away. Ever since he got outside of DRS range, he hasn't had the pace to keep up with these guys. Jake Benham, Kyle Mitchell, they'll be wanting to try and get past Cruti, but they don't seem to be able to make enough of an impression on the Polish driver.
This is just what you're going to see here at Monza. We talk about the DRS train that makes it so difficult to overtake. Alvaro Carreton now 5.4 seconds behind top 97. I feel like he's gaining about 8 tenths or so per lap over the Red Bull driver, but that is just not enough. There's 13 laps to go, so overall you could say maybe 13 seconds, but don't forget the amount at which Alvaro Carreton is closing in on the hard tire runners will only decrease as we get further and further into the stint.
And at the moment, Alvaro Carreton and Alessio Di Capua are only about a second faster than the likes of Idowu, Otmir, and Paradzic. And let's not forget that those three are in traffic as well. So they could probably go significantly faster, and probably will go faster, once Yemulo, Andy, and Pablo Hoglar all come into the pits. So the overspeed, the undercut, or rather the difference in tyre between Carreton, Di Capua, and then Idowu, Otmir, Paradzic is not enough right now. Carreton will be able to get up to the back of the whole field as Yemulo dives into the pits from the race lead. But once, maybe he can pass a few of them, but he can't pass too many, and he's definitely not going to catch the front few runners.
And here comes Fabrizio De Noso right on the rear end of Ben Saboconi. Ben Saboconi has DRS, but so does Fabrizio De Noso. He'll dive it down the inside, laying on the brakes, the two Renaults side by side, all the way through the Rettifilio chicane. Ben Saboconi will hold on to the position. Fabrizio De Noso tucks right on in behind the Renault into Curva Grande. Fabrizio De Noso will take the long way round. This will become the inside for the Roger chicane. Fabrizio De Noso pulls off the move and moves it back ahead of his teammate.
Yeah, he heard me saying earlier that Bentz looked like the faster of the two Renault drivers, and he's not having any of that. Moving back up into 13th place then. Meanwhile, slightly further up, Jake Benham was also able to get past Patrick Cruti at the beginning of that lap. So he now has clean air, and he wants to push into that 3-second gap between himself and fellow newcomer Liam Parnell up ahead in 9th. Because Cruti was losing time to those guys, let's not forget. So it's important that Benham was able to get past the pole in the Mercedes there. And now he needs to drop him as fast as he can.
Also just taking a look to the chat, I think we've got a few Jake Benham fans coming through. Bolts and Big C. Got some Felipe fans, Ellison Becker and Bruno Yamamoto. Thank you to everyone tuning in on YouTube for round 11 of the championship. Let us know, actually, who do you think is going to be able to take the win? And I'm not talking about post-penalties. I'm talking about pre-penalties. Because right now, I think Josh Idowu will be able to take the win on circuit.
It's looking fairly likely at the moment. He's used a lot less ERS than his teammate Paradzic, and still also used less than Jarno Otmir as well. So out of the three of those who you'd say are the prime contenders to win this one on circuit, he has got the best ERS management right now, which is always a good sign of your general pace at a circuit, because you can afford to save the ERS and stay at the same pace as the other drivers. That means, theoretically, you could be going faster than them. So Josh Idowu is looking very, very solid right now, but we've seen Jarno Otmir appear slower than other drivers in certain races before, and then all of a sudden he's actually not slower. He's got about a second in the bag that he was just sort of sitting.
Jarno Otmir is very good at being able to hide his pace, sandbagging, one might say. Maybe that's why he ended up joining Mercedes Esports. You know, fits right on in with the sandbagging identity of the team. Now, Dario Malo is closing in onto Alessio Di Capua. He's 3 tenths behind and on fresh soft tyres, so he should be able to make quick work of the Ferrari driver as Pablo Hoglar dives on into the pits as well. Dario Mulo just 2/10 behind, and after Parabolica will have DRS from the start finish straight.
Yeah, Flores Wires also at the very back of the field, pitted for a second set of medium tyres. So the race not going the way that the Dutchman would like in his first race back for a while here in ORL. Dario Yamulo is not going to be close enough to Alessio in turn 1 on this occasion to try and make a move. Meanwhile, further up, Getone has actually been able to get past Bent Sabokonyi, who, after putting on a bit of a charge at the start of this hard tyre stint, is maybe feeling the effects of that now, struggling with tyre wear a bit or something like that, because he's fallen well away from his teammate Donoso, who now is actually making a move on Kyle Mitchell. So Donoso is the runner whose star is rising, and Bent Sabokonyi is accordingly waning, and Tom 97 is the next one to maybe have a go at the Hungarian.
Bent Sabokonyi, the Hungarian, is struggling now on these hard tyres, and maybe Tom 97's strategy of putting one lap later onto those hard tyres might be helping him somewhat. I can't imagine by very much, but maybe an ever so slight advantage over the Renault, as they're pretty much at 1, 2, 3 Getone, Sabokonyi and Tom 97. Getone 1.4 seconds behind Carl Mitchell. Maybe Bent Sabokonyi can find a way back through. Now we are seeing Andy diving on into the pits.
Andy being the last driver.
And Sabokonyi.
Oh, Carl Mitchell's retired from the session. I don't know if he picked up front wing damage. He did lose out to Fabrizio Donoso on this previous lap. I didn't see any contact between the two of them, but I didn't see the whole battle.
Sabokonyi just betting. He hasn't changed his front wing, so are we in for late drama? How worn are those hard tyres going to be? We remember, Jacob, 2 previous races this season where we have seen drivers on very worn tyres, usually on intermediates and late punctures affecting races. Could we potentially be seeing that again here tonight?
We might well be. They're asking an awful lot of these hard tyres. They're basically saying to the hard tyres, you've got to do the whole race minus 1 lap, maybe minus 2 laps, because some of them were behind the safety car. But nevertheless, you're asking a lot of those hard tyres to stretch for that long. And maybe Tom 97's decision to pit a lap later than everyone else might well be the difference maker. You never know, as Tomek Paradzic picks up another 3-second time penalty. Nicholas Longue did as well just a few moments ago, so he's up to 9 seconds, currently sitting in P6, the Frenchman in the Red Bull, who was starting on the front row, of course, alongside Alessio Di Caprio, but since then, the race hasn't gone well for either of those drivers.
Tomek Paradzic getting very close to Jano Otmir. He picked up that time penalty through Ascari. Jano closing in onto Joshidowu. And Jano is forced to burn ERS just to defend from Tomek. And as a result, you know, he's burning up his own ERS. He doesn't want to challenge Joshidowu just yet. Pablo Hoglar picks up the fastest lap of the race, seeing a change of position. Dario Mulo sweeping past the Ferrari. And now Pablo Hoglar will follow through as well, down the inside into the Red Filio chicane. Bit of wheel banging will occur, and Alessio Di Capua drops it back down to P16.
For reference, that Hoglar lap just there, that's about 2 seconds faster than what Idowu, Otmir, and Paradzic are doing at this stage of the race. So there is a big difference between the compounds of tyres right now, but not really big enough, especially when there's so much traffic. However, the likes of Hoglar, who's been able to keep it clean thus far, might be able to inherit a top 10 position away from the likes of Nicholas Longue, who's sitting on 9 seconds of time penalties, and a lot of other drivers on 3 seconds as well. So it's not all clear for them quite yet, as the guys on the Contra strategy will be getting closer and closer to those 3-second margins as the race comes to its conclusion. Tom was able to get past Getone on this last lap. He's up into 11th place in the Red Bull, but he's got a big gap of 3.6 seconds between himself and Fabrizio Donoso in 10th.
And Alvaro Caraton has closed on in to get home. Fabrizio Donoso diving into the pits on those hard tyres, so another driver deciding that the hards just can't last to the end, and Alvaro Caraton down the inside of the Haas of Getone surely will pick up the position. There's a yellow flag out in Sector 1, no safety car. That would have been disaster for quite a few drivers, but Alvaro Caraton moves up to P11. Next up for him is Tom 97 in the Red Bull.
Yeah, and then it's Felipe, because that yellow flag was out for the Haas driver. The Brazilian made a mistake in the first chicane and was off in the grass, so losing a hatful of positions there. And hasn't lost out to Tom 97 Alvaro Caraton, but he is going to struggle to keep the Spaniard behind coming to the end of this race, you would have to imagine. Meanwhile, Andy is able to get past his teammate down in 15th, which shows you just how roughly Alessio Di Capio's race is going at this stage. Fabrizio Donoso in 19th now after pitting, picks up another 3-second time penalty.
Fabrizio Donoso and time penalties. It's him and Nicholas Longway who always seem to really stack up the penalties. If they get one, you know that they're going to get a whole bunch. Keeping an eye on Alvaro Carreton. He's just 3/10 behind Tom 97, who's a further 4 seconds behind Felipe. So Tom 97 does not have much to defend from the Spaniard with, and I'm expecting this to be a fairly quick and clean move from the Williams drive.
We will see, and yeah, it looks like that's exactly what it's going to be, as Alvaro just sweeps on past before they even get to the braking zone, takes the racing line back and moves himself up into 10th position. Tom, I'm sure, won't have been willing to fight that one too hard anyway. I'm sure he was well aware that Alvaro was going to come past by hook or by crook, and indeed he does so. Tom thinking about a move back, though, through Curva Grande, but didn't deploy the overtake. I don't think he was ever going to send that one up the inside of the Spaniard. Dario Yamulo picks up another 3-second time penalty as he's pushing as hard as he can on his set of soft tyres. But every time penalty he gets makes it less and less likely that he's going to be able to secure at least a point in this race.
Now, Jacob, it's time for one of Milky Cereal's mini-games. We're going to play Guess the ERS of the top 3, without looking, of course.
Okay, without looking, I'm going to say Josh Adowu is currently on about 64, 65. Jana Watmer is on about 50, and Tomex on about 25.
So, Josh Adowu's on about 40%. Jana
Okay.
Watmer's at 90%. And
Oh dear,
Tomek
okay.
Poradish is on about 20%.
Okay, well, I got that one right. That one was perfect. Yeah, Jana Watmer was on lower ERS than Josh Adowu while the two of them were in traffic. But now that Josh is in clean air and has to make his own way at the very front, he doesn't get the advantage of DRS. He's having to use much more ERS to keep Jana Watmer behind. So that battery charge is definitely going in the favor of the Dutchman in the Mercedes right now. And he can basically pull the trigger on Josh whenever he wants. He'll maybe be able to fend him off for one lap with the 40% that he has. But after that, Jana Watmer is going to be easily eating up the gap between himself and Josh Adowu and probably getting past the Welshman. So the race is in Jano's hands once again, and not just because of penalties.
Honestly, I don't get how Jana Watmer is able to save up that ERS so well, because as you mentioned, Jacob, he was so low in the ERS department before, but he's been able to save it up magnificently. And this is one of the reasons why he is the best F1 esports driver in the world. His ERS management is simply phenomenal and something that most other drivers just cannot compete with. But we are about to start lap 23 of 27. 5 laps remain here in Italy. Alvaro Carreton at 3.8 seconds behind Felipe. How close are these hard tyres to falling off the cliff? Flores Tyres picks up a time penalty. Jana Watmer just sitting behind Josh Adowu, just saving up the ERS, just waiting, just biding his time. As it would seem that I think Jacob is having some internet issues, and hence why he has, you would have seen appear on your screen, having left the lobby. Don't worry, he doesn't hate us. He should be back with us, hopefully, for the final few laps of the race. Means, ladies and gents, you're in only my hands. Okay. Dario Muller currently down in P13. He's closing in on to Getone with those soft tyres. The first of the soft tyre runners, but has got 1 or 2 time penalties to his name. And if we do actually just take a look at time penalties, Dario Muller 6 seconds of time penalties, 5 seconds for Josh Adowu after speeding into the pit lane. Tomeko Paradish with 3 seconds of time penalties. Same for Danny Haddad with Nicholas Longay. 9 seconds of time penalties. So as things stand, it's actually going to be Jake Benham who finishes either in P4 or P3 right now, depending on how much spread there will be between McLaren of Tomek Poradish and Jake Benham in the Alfa Romeo. Into the Rettio Filia chicane, lap 24th, the 24th time. Gedone picks up a time penalty. Let's see how those gaps are starting to form. Whether there are any inroads from the likes of Alvaro Carreton. Still 3 seconds behind Felipe. Those medium tires will definitely be faster still than the hard tires at this point, but not by a huge amount. And you can see that gap kind of fluctuating between 2.9 and 3.1. Alvaro is slowly closing in as, oh no, what's happened? Nicolas Longuet. Nicolas Longuet has run wide. He's got a puncture. It's a left rear puncture. And this is only on lap 24 of 27. A puncture with 4 laps to go for the Frenchman. Oh dearie, dearie me, things are not boding well for all of the drivers who are on hard tires. Nicolas Longuet is going to have to dive into the pits. All of a sudden, Alvaro Carreton, does he have a chance of claiming the win here at Monza? Who will bite the bullet? Who will decide, okay, we're going to stay out on the hard tires? Who will decide, okay, it's not worth the risk? Time to pit, time to put on a set of fresh softs. Nicolas Longuet dropping all the way down to P16 before being able to enter the pit lane. But drama unfolding here at Monza with 5 laps to go. Absolute insanity. And now we've got Dario Mullo right on the back of Gedone. Remember, Dario Mullo on the soft tires. Danny Haddad actually able to find a way through. Tomek Poradic has a puncture as well. And again is on the left rear. 2 punctures. 1 lap after another. And the punctures are coming through thick and fast here at Monza.
This is absolutely mental. Sorry for my absence, by the way. My internet cut out and I've come back to what can only be described as utter chaos here. The punctures coming through, and there's still a couple of laps to go, so there's going to be yet more punctures. You can bet on the fact that there will be more punctures for the hard tyre runners before the end of this race. Nicolas Longuet picking up another 3 seconds.
We might be having an incident down into Ascari. This is looking tight between them. Gedone and Pablo Hogla running side by side as Dario Mullo being the cork in the bottle. Dario Mullo with a damage on his car, having run into the back of Tomek Poradic on the exit of Lesmo 2. And now I'm looking towards those top 3 because right now, Jacob, anything can happen. We have 2 laps remaining and surely there is at least 1 more puncture awaiting us.
Yeah, Daniela Haddad is closing in a lot on Josh Idowu and Jarno Otmir as well compared to a few laps ago. So I think they're both managing their tyres as best they can. And maybe when we saw Daniele falling away earlier on, that's exactly what the Italian was doing. Maybe he managed his tyres more and earlier, and now he's getting the payback from it. And whose tyres are going to go bang next? It's an absolute Russian roulette at the front right now. And Alvaro Carreton will be absolutely loving it. And not only has the punctures helped him to find his way up through the field, but he's got closer because they're all having to drive so slowly to try and preserve their tyres as well.
Oh, Andy down the inside of Lesmo 1. No! He loses the back end, and that was always going to end badly. And Andy will drop it down the field. The chance of points has gone flying away from him.
Disaster there for Andy, who falls well down towards the very back. Same for Nicolas Longuet, who has a puncture and is driving out there with a puncture. The Red Bull driver, who was always going to fall down the order anyway due to penalties, will not be able to secure a points finish in this race, just like last time out. Meanwhile, at the very front, Jarno Otmir might be mounting a charge on Josh Idowu, but I'm not even sure he really wants to. He doesn't want to do anything to jeopardize these tyres right now, but he is going to take a look at the rear wing of the McLaren, says he doesn't like the look of it, and moves up into first place. Josh Idowu can't brake late enough, and Jarno Otmir is into the lead.
Josh Idowu will be able to get a good exit out of the corner. Does he have the ERS? Well, no, because Jarno Otmir has 50% ERS. As we just seen Alvaro Carreton finding a way past Felipe. And I think Felipe might be the next one with a puncture. Yes, he does. Again, it's the left rear tyre, Jacob. The left rear tyres are going pop. Lap after lap after lap. Final lap of the race. Jarno Otmir, Josh Idowu, Danny Haddad, Liam Pardell and Jake Benham need to be coasting it to the end if they don't want to risk picking up a similar puncture to everyone else.
They've all got to be so close to the edge right now. They're all going to be in puncture territory. You can pretty much guarantee it.
Alvaro Carreton, Jacob. Jake Benham's going to go defensive. Outside into Ascari.
Oh.
Alvaro Carreton. What a move from the Spaniard. He moves up to P5. He won't be able to get any higher up the order, but that's a fantastic move. Patrick Cruti now going to try to follow through as the Italian Grand Prix will come to a close. Jake Benham goes defensive. Patrick Cruti looks to the outside, but he will not be able to find a way through. He looks for the cutback, but he just can't find the traction. The rear end tries to step out. Joshi Domu crosses the line in P2. Jano Watmir takes the win. Alvaro Caraton somehow ends the race in a second ahead of a Jake Benham in his debut ORL race, and Patrick Cruti in P4.
That is astonishing. Jake Benham with a podium in his first race here in ORL of the season, and maybe ever, to be honest. What a performance from him here today. His pace was good throughout, and he made those hard tires last when many other great drivers weren't able to do so. Tom97 will be happy up there in 7th. Liam Parnell getting points as well in his first race. Patrick Cruti, who didn't really have the pace today, nevertheless, he had the nous to know that he needed to hold on to his tires, and he reaps the benefits with a 4th place finish. Daniela Haddad fell down at the very end, so I wonder if he picked up a puncture or if that was just based on penalties. I think it was just penalties for the Italian. But wow, what an absolutely mental race there. And still Alessio Di Capua, despite all that, still only finished down in 11th.
Can we get an F in the chat for Alessio Di Capua? Because, honestly, as an Italian, my heart goes out to him. And I feel that he got robbed. He got qualified on pole, the safety car, he pitted, he stayed out, the others didn't pit. And that 5-second time penalty really threw him. He would have been in a similar position to Alvaro Caraton. He would have been in that top 4, that top 5, if it was not for that time penalty that he had to serve in the pit lane.
Indeed, yeah. And it could have been so different for him as we wait for Nicholas Longue to actually cross the line here, as he's doing donuts with a puncture before the line. I was wondering what was taking so long for the race to come to its conclusion. And it's all thanks to this man who started 2nd, and he's finishing down in 19th. And, well, he's not actually finishing at all at the moment. As,
Nicholas Longue is being that guy from the 5-lap lobbies who refuses to finish a race and holds you hostage. Wow. Honestly, Jacob, I think we need you to leave the lobby more often towards the end of a race.
I was all that was keeping some of those hard tires on the rim of those tires. I mean, on the rim of the wheels, rather. They were just popping all over the place as soon as I left. So, and only a couple popped after I came back as well. So it seemed like most of the events happened while I was gone.
I think we had 2 while you were gone, and then 2 when you came back. But either way, Jano Otmir picks up the win again. Unsurprisingly so, I guess it is, as always, a bit of a regular here at ORL. Alvaro Caraton, that is a comeback drive. Alvaro Caraton didn't have fastest lap. That honor went to Tomek Boretic on the soft tires that he picked up, having picked up a puncture late on into the race. But on that note, we're going to be heading into a short ad break, and when we're back, we'll be having our post-race reactions as well as a driver interview. Stay tuned for more here at ORL. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, as we are jumping on in for our post-race reactions. And our race winner has joined us, Jano Otmir. Jano, again, another victory coming through for you, but it didn't look like things were going all your way in qualifying. P4, what was up? Did you just not have the setup, or were you just unable to hook up a lap?
No, setup was really good. I just didn't really get the lap together. I mean, it was super close, of course. At the same time, I'm really focusing on Formula E, so put F1 a little bit as second priority at the moment, so I can focus more on Formula E. So I've been struggling a little bit there, so yeah, at least it made a little bit for a fun race. Not gonna lie, especially that opening lap was very tricky with the incident. So it was definitely a lot of fun, and then the tire wear was really tricky all race, as I went for the hards really early on, lap 1. So yeah, from there on it was just managing tires. As you could see some punctures here and there. I just tried to really back off and not get any wheel spin or slides, so I could make it to the end, which even then was really tough.
I do want to ask you about that opening lap, because you started in P4, and then you came out of a turn 2, all of a sudden you were in second alongside Nicholas. Then Nicholas had an incident into the Roger chicane. I'm not quite sure what happened. Was there any contact between you and him, or him with, I believe it was Alessio who was leading at the time?
No, I think Nicholas just missed his braking point, and then went into Alessio. I didn't have contact with anyone, so fortunately for Alessio, he got a penalty by the game, I think so. So that was very unfortunate, because then he had to make the pit stop and give away that 5 seconds. He had to wait, of course, stop and go penalty. So yeah, that ruined his race a little bit. But in the end, I think our strategy, pitting for lap 1 hards, was the best anyway. Even though Alvaro did went through the field really well, I think in the end the hard strategy was slightly faster.
Final question that I do have is, what was your tire wear at the end of the race?
79%, so 1% away from the risky zone.
1% away from the risky zone. Fine margin is always well calculated by Jarno Otmir. I believe Jacob has Alvaro Caraton at the ready.
Yeah, hello Alvaro, how are you doing?
Hello, good night.
Indeed, yeah. So I just checked Twitter and saw that you called this maybe your best race ever. And of course, it was a bit up and down for you, for sure. I mean, did you think it was going to be such a good race after you didn't come into the pits in the first few laps?
I don't know what just happened, to be honest. I was P19, 50 seconds off the lead, and somehow managed to finish P2. I managed the tires, I managed the DRS, and I didn't get penalties, which helped me to go through the field. But yeah, I think it was the best race in my life, in all big racing history, I think.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I mean, during when you pit, we were saying there isn't enough pace. There's never going to be enough pace on these medium tires to catch up to the very front runners. But when the tires started going pop and everyone was in tire conservation, it seemed like you hadn't made such a bad decision after all. And yeah, and keeping it clean as well, as you mentioned, getting those last 3 positions at the very end to claim the podium. Let's quickly think back to qualifying, though, because you were sitting on top for a while there in qualifying, but ended up down in 6th on the grid, if I'm not mistaken. What went wrong in that final lap?
Yeah, I had a mistake in the penultimate lap, and in the last lap I was improving, but yeah, I got little traffic, and finally I couldn't improve, but it was okay. And yeah, I was P4 in the start. I managed to get 2 positions, and then I think I made the mistake by not pitting when the safety car, but still I think I managed to finish in a good position.
If I could just interject as well, Alvaro, I do have one question for you, because as a driver, you always say you never want to be picking up positions from punctures or other drivers' misfortunes, but at the same time, I've just got in my head a vision of you just being a little bit grumpy driving, just thinking, why did the safety car have to come out? And then all of a sudden, when people start dropping down the order, a little smile coming through. How much were you hoping for more punctures to come in? Because you got so close to picking up the win.
Yeah, I knew it was risky to go for hards in lap 2, because you could have a puncture and you need to save tires, and I decided to don't pit, but yeah, everyone pitted except Alessio and me. So it was a hard race, but I expected 2 or 3 punctures, and that's what happened. But congrats to Jarno, because he managed the tires another time.
Excellent to hear, Alvaro. Thank you very much for joining us for an interview. We'll move on next to Patrick Kruti. Patrick, how on earth did you manage a P4 in that race? Because it was not looking good for you in qualifying.
Yeah, started from P16 to finish P4. I think it's again one of the best races I have done. But actually, I didn't feel that great in the race at the beginning, especially with the hard tires after the safety car. But yeah, I don't know how the hell I end up in the P4 because I finished P7 on the track. But yeah, people got penalties in front, so yeah, that was lucky. But also, I just feel a bit frustrated that I didn't manage a podium because it was so close, and the Parabolica was very close with Jake. I believe we were fighting for position, and I didn't manage to overtake him. But yeah, P4, crazy because yeah, I didn't believe before after the quali I will finish before. There was no way. But again, I think my experience in the races, I think, pays off. And yeah, I just finished P4, which is good for the championship because still I'm in the fight for P2 in the championship. So yeah, it's good.
That final lap from you, Patrick, you had Alvaro ahead. He managed to find a way through on Jakey, and that is what compromised him on the exit of Ascari. You got so close. You had a little look to the inside, but I think Jake covered it off quite well. And then I saw you just trying to get on the power in that back end, just stepping out that tiny bit through Parabolica. How much tire wear did he have on that final lap?
Yeah, I think around 85% because I was not saving them since lap 1, but I know that my tire wear usually is very good. So by pushing since lap 2 or 3 after the safety car, obviously, I think 85 is not a bad result. But yeah, at the end, I tried to look on the inside, but yeah, it was too risky to do that. So I decided to do an undercut on the exit, but yeah, I just didn't have tires left. So yeah, it was tricky. I was worrying about the puncture because I had 75% in Belgium and I had an instant puncture, and here I had 85. So it was lucky because few people got a puncture in this race. So yeah, very lucky, but also very happy, of course.
Honestly, I think I should put through to league admins to change the league name to Puncture Racing League because we have had a lot, and I think quite a few drivers are starting to get some PTSD of picking up punctures, and a lot of drivers now being very wary of it. Either way, congrats Patrick on the P4, and I think you still hold on to that P2 spot in the championship. Can you take it all the way?
I hope. I just need more pace, man. I mean, I'm just missing 2 310s to those best drivers. So I wish if I found the pace, then I will be very how to say that. I will be happy with that. But currently, with my pace, it's gonna be very difficult. So I need again a very lucky race for me to make sure I can hold on to this P2. But we'll see. I will try to maximize my pace in Bahrain.
Well, best of luck, Patrick, in that final race. It's going to be a tough battle, I think, between yourself, Danny Haddad, and Alvaro. So best of luck next week.
Thanks.
Next, we do have Liam Parnell in his debut race in ORL, able to pick up a P6. Congrats on the performance, Liam. What were you aiming for coming into this weekend, and have you been able to kind of meet your expectations?
Yeah, good evening, first of all, and yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was my first ever race on PC, so I was still struggling with consistency. So I followed my qualifying quite hard, and my only goal really was to not get wing damage, which hasn't aged well. I got wing damage before turn 1, which obviously is never great, but yeah, the hards were really good, and I managed to save the tires quite well, and yeah, I'm really, really happy with this result.
One thing that I do want to ask as well, because I always like to ask this question to anyone who's just switching from one platform to the other. What have the changes been like for you switching over to PC, and how have you been able to kind of adapt to the challenges that F1 PC brings?
well, obviously the grid is way more competitive, so I definitely need to get used to that. But I actually like the PC way more than the PS4 because I just like the handling of the car a lot more, and it fits my driving style really well. So if I can get in the consistency, I guess I can hopefully be more often in this interviews. So yeah.
Well, Liam, you're always more than welcome to jump in for the interviews, no matter where you finish. Either way, congrats on P6, and we
Thank
look
you.
forward to seeing you again next week in Bahrain.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Right, we're going to move on to Tom, who managed to pick up a P7. Tom, I'm going to guess after qualifying, just like Patrick, you weren't expecting a top 10 finish.
To be fair, I wasn't ruling it out. I had a much better qualifying than I did. Of course, I raced here Thursday in a different league, and I qualified 19th. I didn't practice enough, so I was determined to do better. I surprised myself, actually. P12 was far better than I expected, to be honest with you. My lap was actually better than my time trial lap, so I was kind of happy with it. And I thought, okay, you know what, in the race, if I keep it clean, a couple of penalties, which are pretty likely, I could definitely, pick up a few pieces here and there. So I was feeling confident, but obviously I got wing damage at lap one, and then back to last place.
What was your thoughts? Because pretty much the entire field went for hard tires, and I think you were the driver who stayed out one lap longer to put on the hard tires, and that might have been the thing that kind of saved your race at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was a lot of things. I saved a set of softs in qualifying as well, because I was aware everyone was going for 4 runs, and I wanted to keep that strategy option open to myself. So I kept a fresh set of softs for the race, and then for that, obviously. I had Nico Longe, of course, my teammate. He was ahead of me, so he pit. So I knew he had a 5-second penalty as well. So I thought, okay, he's probably going to pit. We're in the Red Bull pit box, which tends to get held, and he's going to take a 5 seconds. So I needed a front wing change as well. So there's no point me just taking a 45-second stop. So I just stayed out for another lap, and that entire in lap, I was debating whether to go soft and just go super aggressive or go for the hard tire. I was speaking to my engineer. He was telling me everyone went for the hard tire. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go safe and just keep track position, try and stay in the train, in the DRS train, sorry, and just go long and hope that by the end of the race, something goes my way. So pretty much that was the plan. I got an extra lap on everybody else on my tires. I was very, very, let's say, lenient on tire warm-up. I did not put my hards through too much. Even towards the end, I kind of restarted on cold tires, but it was worth it because it meant I saved a lot just in that phase alone. And then obviously following at the back, I couldn't really go anywhere. So just kind of chugging along. Pace was good. I felt quick. I could have pushed more. So I just waited for my moment, really. And then obviously the race started to open up. The train started to break up a little bit with the pit stops from the guys on the softs and the mediums. And then also I think with Patrick, I think he fell off from the lead pack. So once things opened up, the pace picked up. I was, okay, I can do this. And then obviously Alvaro caught me. And then I just followed him home until my tires went, obviously, across the line with 81%.
Ooh, really, just skimming into that puncture range. I do believe it was last week you said that this wasn't a track that you were particularly good at, looking forward to. I can't remember if it was in an interview or on Twitter. Heading into next week, Bahrain, can we hope for another Tom 97 top 10?
I'm not sure. Obviously, last week I didn't race because it was Silverstone short. I am not a fan of the short circuits, so I'm not going to say I'll 100% be attending next weekend.
It's not Bahrain short next weekend. It is.
Is it not?
I think.
Okay, in that case, I'm happy to hear that. So hopefully, I'll obviously try and practice, put the work in. Last week, obviously, I knew it wasn't going to be a race for me, so I didn't really bother wasting my time with it. I was happy to put in a shift today because obviously I think it was 2 weeks ago, the race before that. I think we spoke about this in the interview. And I was happy to put it together, to be honest. I've done 2 races here this week, both of them in the points, and I was last place in both of them for the majority of the race, but it's just about race management. I didn't get penalties today, which is something I'm actually quite good at. It seems like Monza's a good track for me. I've got to give a shout out to Philip Presneder. He helped me a lot with the setup and just helping me improve around there. So, overall, car was great, and I had confidence to push. I kept up with Caraton quite comfortably and managed to nurse the tires home. Once I saw I had a buffer behind, I could just, stay off the curbs completely, just cruise home. It meant I missed out to Patrick and Haddad's penalties, so I could have got P5, But at that point, I just wanted to bring the car home because otherwise, no points at all would have been worse.
Well, you brought the car home. You picked up the points. Congrats again on the top 10 finish, Tom, and we look forward to seeing you next week for the season finale.
Thank you very much.
Right, next, we have Tomek Poradish. And Tomek, I don't know where to start. It looked like it was going so well. You were right on the back of Jarno and your teammate Josh Idowu. I mean, just what was the tyre situation like, and when did the tyres decide to go?
Regarding that race, there's a lot I could say. I didn't have a very good qualifying. Just didn't put a good lap together until the final run, and then invalidated the final run, which was annoying. And then obviously the race was pretty good. I made a couple of stops on the start. Did get myself throwing damage there as well, which was unfortunate. And then I had to drive with that for the rest of the race. So the fact that I was keeping up with, likes of Josh and Jarno was really promising, and I was very happy with my pace. But again, it was just so unlucky again because back last season, the same thing happened in France. I was on for a win, and then on the last lap, my tire blew up at 77%. Today, I think there was a P2 on the cards, and it blew up at 76%. So yeah, right as I go past 75%, it just explodes, which is just tough luck, I guess. But yeah, honestly, after all that, despite the result not being there, despite 0 points taken away from this race, I've shown good pace, I think, especially in the race, keeping up with Jarno and Josh, even putting Jarno under pressure once or twice there. With the damage, it was definitely I'm definitely taking away positives from this race. But yeah, so unfortunate with the puncture again, right as I crossed the 75% mark, it just explodes, which is annoying because I also did a lot of tire saving at that stint. So yeah,
I do have to agree. It was a fantastic drive from you up until that point, and again, it's just kind of luck of the cards, Russian roulette, as Aladar described it during the race. Heading into the final race, Bahrain. Can we hope for that? I think you haven't picked up a podium yet this season, so can we hope for that podium next weekend?
I mean, definitely. I feel like the pace has always been there. Ever since I came back this season, I think every race there was pace for the podium, but I either failed myself to deliver or something like today happened. So I think, yeah, definitely this season, obviously not driving since the start and having only doing a couple races, it will be good to finish it off with like a solid result, and then tackle next season fresh with a mindset to win. So I think I think Bahrain suits me in terms of the driving style, and hopefully this time if I can deliver a slightly better quali and then have the luck turn around for me in the race, because I feel like Bahrain is going to be another track with driving on the edge of the tires of the puncture zone. So if the luck turns around there, I deliver a good quali and show good pace, I think I'm in good contention to bring a podium and maybe even have a win if I drive well enough.
Well, Tomek, thank you very much for joining me for an interview, and best of luck next weekend.
Cheers.
All right, next we have Alessio Di Capua, and Alessio, I honestly don't know where to start because that qualifying pace was phenomenal, and I mean, just talk me through your race.
Yeah, the shame that don't bring you points.
I was so happy as well because it was an Italian on pole at Monza. I felt the Italian pride coming through. I first want to ask what happened into I believe the Roger chicane, because I think Nicolas Longue gave you a little tap into the corner.
I don't know, mate, what's happened. I don't know. I did all well. From the qualifying to the start of the race, I started pretty good. My start was pretty good. I managed to hold behind Nicolas. I saw Hopmer started very well. He gained almost 2 positions in the first chicane. We went in the Roger chicane. I was preparing the chicane as always, and yeah, I don't know what Nicolas did. He I don't know if he wronged the braking zone. He touched me. I tried to avoid the contact, but it was impossible because from that I understood he totally wronged the braking, and yeah. The really unlucky was that at the same time exit the safety car. I don't know for what. Maybe some incident behind, and yeah, that 5 seconds totally ruined my race because I entered on the box at the end of the first stint, and yeah, I lost 5 seconds to Alvaro, and that 5 second, yeah, totally destroyed my race because the guys that entered the box started with medium, put the soft, overtook me. Pablo and Andy overtook me also in some aggressive way, and yeah. For the rest, what say? Really disappointed race for me, and the worst thing because it's it's the 5 or 6 consecutive race that I continue to have some unlucky or yeah. I don't know. Mate. And my feeling aren't. I'm not happy. I'm not happy. I yeah, a little bit discouraged. Discouraged because yeah, when you have 5, 6 consecutive race and that you continue to have a bad result, yeah, it's not good. Sorry for in particular for the people that follow me on Twitch because I wanted to present a good race, but yeah, it seems that is impossible to make a good race when every time you have this type of unlucky in Silverstone short, also with Johnny Tormala that breaking so early, and I broke the flap. And yeah, now Nicolas Longuet that totally wronged the braking zone. Yeah, talk mate, sorry. Speak.
Allora, finalmente, vuoi dire qualcosa per i tuoi tifosi su YouTube e Twitch?
Grazie a tutti per seguirmi sempre e per supportarmi a prescindere da come mi vadano le gare e niente, cos'altro posso dire? Mi dispiace per come è andata anche questa sera e ci vediamo presto in una nuovissima live stream. That it's what I want to say of my all people.
Well, thanks, Alessio. We love having you here, and honestly, I think most of the guys who watch over on YouTube and Twitch will be rooting you on next weekend in Bahrain.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I hope.
All right, Jacob. Well, this was an absolute roller coaster of a race. Punctures coming in thick and fast at the end. Honestly, I don't think Bahrain can top this.
Well, I mean, Bahrain's a circuit with high. It's honestly, pound for pound, it produces some of the best races for all races or all tracks on the F1 game. So if there is a track that I have faith in the ability to at least match that level of race, it is Bahrain. But yeah, we're less likely to see a safety car there. We're less likely to see any rain. Of course, there wasn't any rain here today. So there's less likely to be something, extraneous to spice it up. But nevertheless, I think it can deliver.
Well, an absolutely phenomenal race nonetheless. We'll see whether Bahrain can deliver, at the very least, the same excitement, the same high-level intensity that we saw tonight at Monza. If you haven't already, make sure to drop a subscription over on YouTube to stay up to date with everything ORL related, and you can follow on Twitter as well at team_ORL. I've been Yusuf Milky Serial bin Sahel. You can find me on Twitter at MilkySerial73, and I've been joined by the magnificent Jacob Alada Hancock. You can find him on Twitter at JHancocksCaster. From both of us, thank you very much for tuning in, and until next week, stay fast and good night for today.